Hi, my name's Karen Scassell. I'm CEO of Scassell Collection, and
I'm Cerelia Rose, the creative director.
And we would like to welcome you to the very first edition of Fiber Factor.
First judging session.
First judging
So
section.
excited.
Yes. Just want to give you a little intro. Scassell Collection. We are the distributors of the Addy Turbo needles in the United States and Canada, and also about 100 different fine yarns from different companies such as Schulana, Zitrone, Schuppel, and Schella Esslinger, Osterman,
Haiku.
And then of course our own line Haiku. Yeah. So thank you for watching, and we have got a really good program planned for you today. We're making history, I think, doing this in the knitting industry, and we've got a great group of judges with us today.
Hi, I'm Clara Parks.
I'm Jennifer Burt.
I'm Franklin Habit.
I'm Isolde.
My name is Jody Gordon-Lucas, and this is The Good Life. Every stitch I used in The Good Life has special meaning to me. There's my marriage, there's joy, there's laughter, there's reminders that even when things aren't going well, life is still good, and the idea that you need to pay forward the kindnesses that you're given. I use the pinwheel shape because my knitting life really began when I got sick, and dizziness has been a part of every bit of it. I love making The Good Life, and I hope you enjoy your good life too.
I wanted to tell you a bit more about the stitch patterns. This first one is my marriage. It's the braided sideways hearts. And here we have smiley faces. They're made with nups, which are basically the most ridiculous stitch ever. They're to remind me that laughter is mandatory. The stitch pattern is the lyre. Music is a big part of my life. We all play an instrument, and it also reminds me to dance to my own tune. This is my family, 4 connected individuals. And here we have, this is supposed to look like fireworks. It means to live with exuberant joy. These S curves remind me that life is still good when it throws me a curve. And this is Janus, the two-faced Roman god that looks both to the past and the future. And this is the Great Circle, the idea that you need to pay forward the kindnesses you're shown. And around the outside we have a tiara edging, which is meant to look like my tiara. So there we go.
Thank you, Molly.
The first thing that I thought was, oh, wow, that is a lot of knitting. That is a very large shawl. In my notes on the piece, I thought it was very pretty, and I also thought that it was nice that the inspiration was very apparent, that I could see as soon as I looked at it, oh, she probably selected each of these lace motifs to represent different aspects of her life or different episodes in her life.
And I really felt that she stayed the closest to the guidelines. I thought the work was lovely. I thought she did an excellent job. And then, like I said, I felt like I could save her life.
I really liked the shawl and the concept, and I was a little bit disappointed that the motifs hadn't been manipulated in some way, either to fit into the wedges or to sort of grow more organically.
I have to say, well, like Franklin said, I was speechless by the sheer volume of the piece. I mean,
I thought she should have used a needle size smaller, perhaps even 2. Unisono is a very, I call it a boing factor, but it's a very, it has a very, what do we want to call it?
Elasticity and bounce. Yeah,
it has a lot of bounce to it. And if she would have done it just a little bit tighter, it wouldn't have such a, it almost looks like it's being weighed down.
Hi, I'm Terri Rosenthal, and this is my first challenge piece for Knit Your Life. The piece is named Two Sides to Every Story, Two Sides to a Life, and obviously Two Sides to a Sweater. As I'm a fraternal twin, dualism was very important. Having the same 2 pieces but that mesh together, creating one thing, as sisters do. The cabling represents my sisters, my children, and me. The eyelet work inside of there is letting fresh light into better perspective. The little popcorns along the side, which are dual as twins are, represent, believe it or not, my grandchildren. On this side, I did popcorn stitches and ribbing. The popcorns are sprouting seeds of creativity in our lives. The ribbing has to do with a corset, but also stability and creating a stable place for those seeds to grow. Obviously, the flowers and have to do with nature, as do the crocheted pieces, which I also picked up from my grandmother along with the beading. The back piece carries on into the same thing. It's a little off-center because I'm a little off-center. Will someone want to knit this? I think so, because all of us can relate to it. The colors also represent winter into spring, nighttime into the morning light. And I think I've met all the criterias that you're looking for, and I hope you all like it because this is my life.
The first word that came to mind when I saw it was charming. I don't know why all of these pieces worked together for me, but all of these individual elements, for whatever reason, I thought they came together and I thought that it was charming.
I did think it was well executed and sort of pretty fun and creative. And I liked that she had it asymmetric on the front and the back, and that sort of idea of duality and tension as well as balance.
I applauded the fact that she tried something really different. I mean, the splitting it down, the asymmetrical split in the front, the asymmetrical split in the back, to me, that was my favorite thing about it. The thing that I would change, the thing that would really boost it for me, is I don't think that the flowers and the vines are necessary.
Well, I think in terms of the assignment to knit your life, I gave very high scores for that, because this is clearly, I viewed it as kind of an art piece that was deeply, deeply personal.
Hi everybody, my name is Natalie Larson and I'm here to tell you about my sweater design, Seasons. When I first heard about this challenge, I was a little bit overwhelmed because I'm so many different things, and to pinpoint one of them was truly difficult. So rather than choosing one part about myself, I decided to incorporate that feeling of I'm all of these different things, and that's what makes me unique and who I am, into the inspiration for this sweater. I'm calling it Seasons because we're all in different seasons, figuratively, literally, and a mom on the go wants to be ready for anything and everything. So let me show you a little bit about what my sweater can do. You can see this garment really is transitional. It's got a faux button band right here with snaps behind it. We've got pockets that could be either knitted or sewn. There are button tabs to make it into a 3/4 sleeve or not. And I used the same fun fabric to kind of accent that here. It's got a hood that's entirely removable. It is just as versatile as the things that go into who I am and reflects me in that way. There's really so many ways you could make this sweater your own, whether you omit the stripes, whether you just choose 2 colors over the color blocking. You could add in pockets, you could knit the pockets, you could knit the hood. There's just so many different ways you can play with it. Maybe you make it a short sleeve. Thank you so much for watching. It's such an honor to be a part of the Fiber Factor. I truly hope you enjoy my design.
I think it's a very pretty cardigan, and I think the workmanship is impeccable. The shaping, the way the stripes, everything matches up perfectly. My one comment is that the V-neck goes all the way down to your navel, whether you're 6 feet tall, or it goes down to your crotch if you're 5 feet tall like I am. So for that, it's a little bit too deep of a V.
I thought this was interesting. I was amazed by the workmanship. Absolutely amazed. Utterly beautiful. If I'm remembering correctly, Natalie, she tried a different set-in sleeve technique, and so I appreciated that. You know, when you're inviting people over for dinner, it's not appropriate necessarily to try a brand new recipe because it might totally bomb on you. And I think the same is true for kind of construction techniques. So I applaud her for trying a new technique.
This is actually, although it's I think one of the sort of cleanest, simplest designs, this is probably the one I had the hardest time scoring. In the end, I gave it high marks for workmanship. I think the workmanship is wonderful, especially that incorporating fabric is not easy.
I loved the fact that the pockets were lined with fabric. I thought that was really clever and fun, and I liked the fact that that same fabric was then incorporated into the ability to roll up the sleeve. I liked the detachable hood. I really liked her explanation for the garment.
Maybe it's because I live in Chicago and I really needed some spring. When I saw this, the design just made me happy. Like, if I were a woman, I would probably, this is the kind of clothing I would gravitate towards. It's just pretty.
Hi, my name is John Reve, and this is my Delft spring-fall sweater jacket and accessories, inspired by my early years spent on my grandparents' flower farm in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. She is of Dutch heritage, he had a love of tulips. Perfect match. I started with 12 floral motifs abstracted from Delft tiles, added in my love of music taught by my grandfather initially. This is done in a mosaic slip stitch. This is all done in welting, including the sleeves, which gives this wonderful Milford fiber, which is a rustic and sophisticated fiber, the strength that it needs, as well as retaining its softness. A little bit about the shaping. I'm real fond of pieces that slink into the back and give additional shaping to the piece. Also, there's this wonderful bell curve, which has a real vaguely ethnic reference. The scarf. Flexibility is key, reversibility of course. Tulips, the beautiful striations, particularly in the prized specimens, as well as the curvature of the petals as they mature. I'm a huge fan of mixing cultures. So with this hat, I brought in yet another floral motif, but imported Chinese porcelain beads with a symbology for long life. My grandfather died at a fairly young age, at 61. But it has been my lifelong mission to take his gifts forward as best I can. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Take care.
I know when I first saw the piece, the first thing I thought was, oh, this guy has Dutch heritage. I don't know, I picked up on that right away for some reason.
Did you?
And the closures on it and the style of it, and it reminded me of Delft pottery somehow. The mixture of textures. He used 3 very different yarns. He used Milford and Leinenlos and Zauberwolle. So he used a linen blend and 2 different wool blends, which are very different. When you actually see the piece, the combination of the different yarns and the texture, yeah, it's all a little overwhelming, I think. I do think he put too much into it. But I actually liked the piece.
I was really rooting for John because as an art history major, I got very excited when he mentioned Mondrian. So I wanted to, like, how are you going to incorporate Dutch tile motifs and Mondrian? And actually, and I don't even know if this was intentional, but with those paintings, part of what he does is in the large white areas, if you look closely, you can see detailed brush strokes. So I was like curious, is he going to do plain old stockinette in the light areas, or is he going to do patterned stitches? And he actually did patterned stitches, which I thought was a very cool.
And I did really like that he had this whole thing that was inspired by flowers and his memories of his grandparents' flower farm that was in no way sort of frilly and floral and feminine, but it did end up being sort of almost too much. I think maybe the biggest thing in terms of advice for next time would be that editing is important. And I think as a designer, that's almost one of the hardest things to learn.
Hi, I'm Rachel Henry, and this is Evolution.
I try to make sure that the stitch patterns flow into each other beautifully. So you can see how after each patterning section really flows into the next one seamlessly so that there's this beautiful unbroken line from the beginning to the end.
Evolution isn't just about my life as a knitter. It's also about life in general. It's about how in my life, and I'm sure in everybody else's life too, I've learned a little bit early on. I build on that. I find out something else new. I learn a little more. And eventually I get to a spot where I can do something really interesting and really special. And if you only look at that final product in any person's life, you wonder, how is that even possible? How do they get there? And yet, if you take it apart and look at it one piece at a time, almost anything is achievable. You can really go anywhere if you're willing to sit down and do the work that it takes to get there. So this shawl, starting with basic stitches and working through to a very complex stitch at the edge, even the complex stitch, if you look at it one stitch at a time, it's just knits and purls, maybe manipulated a little bit, maybe done in a certain order, but it's totally achievable. Anybody can do this. And I think that's what makes knitting so special, is it's this microcosm of life, where if you really sit down and you do the hard work, anybody can get to the final place.
I thought it was accomplished, and I did really like the flow of the stitch patterns and how well done that was. And that was sort of not just well done, because it's always jarring when stitch patterns don't flow well together, but that was kind of an integral part of her inspiration and the symbolism.
Clearly, she understands the shape. She knows the triangular shawl.
She kind of did herself a disservice. Clearly very, very talented. But I had to work really hard to see the story that she was trying to tell and the points that she was trying to make. I think largely because I've seen the shape a lot and because the yarn was getting in the way of the story itself, of the stitches. It's awfully cute, though. I have to say, I gave it a very high want to knit factor.
I have to second your opinion on the want to knit. I gave it high points on that because people do want to knit shawls right now. I did like how the stitches blended into each other, but I agree with Franklin. I had trouble where I felt like the yarn, the color was fighting with the pattern.
A lot of gigantic, really lush, you know, and this one is, and I think that that's brave, and also because it takes a lot of knitting, so, and to just go for it. She really kind of went for it with scale, and I like that about it.
And the flow, though, if you could see it in person, the flow really is amazing, the way it goes with the stitches. It just gets lost in the colors. You really can't see it at all.
Hi, my name is Lorin Riker, and this is Butterfly Princess. So the primary inspiration for this challenge was my grandmother, because not only has she been my biggest fan and amazing supporter, but she's also been a really wonderful role model for me. If I had to describe her in one word, I would describe her as radiant. So I wanted a garment that any girl could put on and feel radiant herself. The reason I called it Butterfly Princess is because that is what my grandmother's been calling me ever since I was a little girl. So I wanted to make a garment that was inspired by what a little girl might wear if she was dressing up as a butterfly princess, but make it into a woman's garment that was very wearable and very chic and sweet, but with that little sense of fantasy and whimsy. So the yarn that I used for my garment was Zitron's Fill Silk, which is a merino silk blend, and as a contrast color in yarn, I used Chulana's Kidsita, which is a mohair and silk blend. The yarns complement each other beautifully. The Fill Silk is super soft and luxurious and drapes beautifully for a dress, while the mohair has a lightness and a sheerness and delicateness that made a beautiful lace hem on the dress and also made this cute little scarf. When the scarf is undone, it actually has the form of butterfly, and if you put it behind you, it actually looks like wings. So my favorite part of the dress is actually the back. It has this really sweet big pink bow. I also did a cutout in the back because I love fashion. So this dress is very wearable and a lot of fun to knit. It has this really fun lace hem, and it's fun to knit the skirt because the daisies continue up with little details like these braided straps and the pink bow with the butterfly lace pattern, which is also incorporated into the scarf. There's lots of fun skills to try out. I love the design. I hope you enjoyed it too, and thanks for watching. Bye!
I know, I love the colors. I think very wise pairing of yarns. Technically, clearly, she's very, very skilled. The execution was very good. I felt like it would be something utterly perfect for an 8-year-old girl.
And I only had to look at this to know who knitted it. The dress is adorable. Will anybody knit it or wear it? She can pull it off. Maybe if I was 20 years younger and 20 pounds lighter, I would do it.
When I saw it, I thought the same thing that you did, Karen. I mean, I knew who made this. She has a very particular point of view, and I think that she lives the lifestyle that she designs for. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I would have gone a little deeper for the inspiration. So I liked the piece. I didn't feel that it necessarily intersected with the challenge at the level that I think she probably had more in there that she could have pushed a little bit. So I'm not going to wear a peekaboo back, but I thought it would look cute on the sort of person that.
I thought it was. I thought it was well done. I would worry about how many people would want to knit this.
When I first saw this, my first response was, "It's precious. It's absolutely darling. It's precious." I had the same response. I desperately want to knit it for my 6-year-old niece.
Hi, I'm Katie Rempe, and this is my design, My Totem Life. Here's a little explanation of what the different sections mean. So up first is birth, I'm a Virgo, and then the music in my life. I used to live in Ohio, which was snowy, and then moved to Florida, which is palm trees. And then this was my rocky adolescent road when I went completely nuts. This represents my chain of friends that I met after my dark period and into my school time at Kent State University. Upon graduation, I had no clue of what I was going to do, hence the question marks. And then, once I found knitting, I realized how to spread my wings and fly into hopefully a very lucrative and prosperous career into the treetops. This has been a really fun design because it is completely customizable. Someone who isn't me could easily change their color scheme, put in different stitch patterns according to the events in their life, and really have a lot of fun with it. You could even adjust the length. This arm warmer has 60 stitches for you to work with, so you can use a lot of different stitch patterns or even just a totally blank chart so that you can create color work that reflects times in your life.
What I actually did like was the video. I thought that was fun, and I think it went with her design. And I did like that she used different symbols to represent different aspects of her life, but I thought they were it was a little too literal.
I think rather than trying to just do 60 stitches all the way across, she has different stitch patterns and everything in here. I think it would have been better to add stitches and delete stitches for different patterns so that she would have had a more even piece.
This isn't a yarn I would have used for stranded color work. It's fantastic for three-dimensional stitch work, for cables, for ribbing, just for beautiful stockinette, that kind of thing. But it's so round and spongy that for stranded color work, especially if your tension is off, and I say this because my tension is off, it's going to show any irregularities. It's not going to conceal. She's perfect. It's the yarn's fault. So
I gave a lot of points for the fact that, again, with this piece, I felt like I could see her life. I didn't think that it blended well. I didn't think that it necessarily was as cohesive as it could have been.
I loved the skeleton of the idea that she came up with. I really did. I thought, what an amazing, like if you ran a yarn shop, you could use this as a class pattern for teaching people stranded color work.
With the color combo, I felt like this was intensely personal. I can't imagine anyone else who would come up with these colors, and it's very, very Katie, I think. And the totem idea was also very unique and original, and that was a great.
Hi, I'm Tracy Percher, and this is my design I call Totality. I created this sweater to represent my life and took into consideration every aspect, from the silhouette to the stitches, the techniques, even the composition and the color of the yarn I used. This top-down seamless raglan with roomy ease is a silhouette that's indicative of who I am. Laid back, easygoing, comfortable. The yarn, Unisono, is a superwash merino with lots of bounce and a vibrant color palette. This too is me, for I see the world joyfully with unlimited possibilities. But I also acknowledge the fact that it can knock you down sometimes. But I always bounce back. Primarily the stitches I used are stockinette and drop stitch. Stockinette for its dependable, easy nature, and the drop stitch for its inherent duality. It can be elegant and beautiful, it can be ugly and unwanted. I use these stitches to create this meandering path, to represent life's journeys and all its twists and turns. Then I wove into that path. The weaving representing my acceptance and celebration of all my life experiences, be they joyful or sorrowful, beautiful or ugly. Because without one of those experiences, I wouldn't be who I am, nor would I have this life that I have. For I am the sum total of all my experiences.
My favorite bit of this was the neck. You know, I like the fabric. I like the resulting fabric.
Also love the collar. I love the woven detail. I think it's a really interesting, I haven't seen this effect before. I haven't seen this weaving in and out. I give her a lot of credit for trying something that's completely risky, and to be honest, because I do think there's some issues with puckering, but she did something risky, and I think that was very cool. Her video, she talked about having low points in her life and wanting to bring those in as well, because that made her who she was. And for me, I didn't see that in the color choice. I didn't see the murky. If she had had conflict between super acid brights and murkier colors, that would have been really interesting to see, and it would have illustrated what she was saying. But I didn't get that here.
This one, I was kind of disappointed by this when I watched her video and her explanation, that I think it could have been a lot more successful, and I was especially disappointed when I saw I think in one of her videos she had a swatch in just the blue, and I really loved that, where the sort of wavy pattern was just there with the contrast and the shadow. And I thought that was much, much more successful.
I will give her credit. I think she did a nice job on the raglan sleeves. I'm really interested to see more and see what else she comes up with. So.
Hello, I'm Steve May, and this is my The Kim's vest, named after Kim Deal of The Breeders and Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth. So for my approach to Knit Your Life, I thought kind of the front is more of like me showing you how I see the world and the things I'm drawn to, which are different textures. So I've used seed stitch for the most of the body. For the ribbing, I used twisted ribbing because it pops out, and I used 2-ply for the rest of the entire piece, but then for the trim here, I just switched down to single-ply ribbing so that it would lay flat and be more smooth. For the buttons, I used Icelandic 10 kroner coins because I learned to knit this past summer in Iceland, and I still am really attached to it. And then the back of the vest is some more of my history. This is me coming from Chicago, so this 6-pointed star, I got the idea from the stars of the Chicago flag, and that's paying homage to my home where I grew up, my mom and dad, all of my friends back there, and of course the Chicago punk rock scene, which is kind of what started it all for me. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.
This appeals to me because I am a simplistic designer. I stick to things that are basic. What I really loved about this was the button treatment, the krona button. He took Icelandic money and drilled into it to make buttons, which
Isn't that a federal offense?
It might be. I don't know. Maybe not in Iceland, but I mean, he's really pandering to the judges here because, of course, I'm obsessed with Iceland. But I thought that was a cool, a cool touch, and you know, I would have liked that from anyone. I think. I do think this is really has a rustic appeal. I think it's really simple. It could look really cool and tough with the right outfit, and I gave it high marks for that. I really love it. Plus, this motif didn't really, I couldn't place it anywhere in knitting history, motif history. I think this didn't look like anything I had seen before, and I didn't know it was the Chicago flag, but I thought it looked very unique and striking, so that's why I gave it high marks.
I gave it the lowest marks. and I would have to disagree. I think it's knit too loosely. I think it has too much drape for this yarn for some reason. I think the buttons were a little too shiny, and the intarsia, I mean, Steve, you got a good idea going here, but the workmanship on the intarsia is not, no, it's not. He actually did intarsia on that, didn't he? I mean, yeah. I'm amazed that you did intarsia on this. I would have done duplicate stitch, I'll tell you that. It would have saved a heck of a lot of time.
And I thought the simplicity of it was lovely. I also felt like even in the simplicity of it, I could see his life.
I had to laugh when I saw the Iceland coins. It's like, okay, he's gonna win. But no, I really liked this because I could see Steve living in this. Like, it was so him that from the standpoint of knit your life, you know, you could knit your life by knitting a mural with all your stories in it, or you can knit a garment that fits you, or at least it looked like it fit him and that he felt really comfortable in.
You know, I took points off for the workmanship, but I also took them off for the creativity. that I do like simple designs, but I felt like this wasn't simple in a terribly interesting way. I know that's a little vague.
Hi, my name is Megan Devoy, and I designed a cat sweater. It is actually being mailed right now. I ran to the UPS store right after my final exam and just mailed it in time, and so that's why I don't have it with me today. The inspiration for my design was a green sweater to symbolize my love of nature, as well as a cat intarsia front to symbolize me. If I was an animal, I would definitely be a cat. I love cats. I'm similar to a cat in that I'm very independent. I like to do my own thing. I'm kind of quiet and introverted in a way that a cat would. I like to think I'm graceful like a cat, but that's not always so. This was my first time doing intarsia. I really struggled with it. This challenge was definitely difficult for me, especially balancing everything with school, but I worked my best at it, and I hope that you like it. I designed something very minimalistic, something that I know that I would wear. I don't like things to be fussy. I like very streamlined design, and I think that my design is something that a lot of people would like to wear and would like to make, and is a good beginner for intarsia project. And I really enjoyed making it. I would definitely make some changes for next time or writing the pattern, but for now I really like my piece, and I hope that you like it too.
I really like the sweater. It's got a Japanese feel. I like the kind of grumpy cat reference. Animal intarsia. I mean, it's not grumpy cat, but it sort of reminds me of grumpy. It is a grumpy cat. And I did
It could easily become grumpy cat.
Absolutely. A little, yeah, more frowning. I think the yarn choice was really great.
You couldn't get your arms
Actually,
in it.
I tried it on yesterday, and it was. I did have an issue. It's true. Okay, big. Okay, Megan's a student, and I'm going to jump into a teacher role here and say that we need to have you consult sizing charts. Either Soul does great sizing charts, or the Craft Yarn Council sizing standards and body measurements. Even just using a dress form or a friend or a garment that you have laying around. This is not an adequate depth for an armhole.
Well, I have to give Megan major props for choosing intarsia, which she has never done before for this challenge. So in terms of like taking it truly as a challenge, and maybe that's the student in her, just a willingness to leap into something that is not all that easy, and to have that be your challenge piece right off the bat, that tells me good things about her.
I think it's really cute, and it is very much on trend. I thought it was entertaining that I think Katie maybe had some 80s cat sweater patterns in her video. Yes. And, I think we're saying this is very simple, but pulling off a cat sweater that is cute and appealing to a lot of people is maybe, I think she does deserve some credit for pulling that off, and that this could have gone very wrong.
My first note on this, literally, I saw this and wrote on my scoring chart, 10,000 people will want to knit this. I mean, it's just, and the other thing I wrote was, I wrote, I wondered how long it would take before we wound up with a cat motif in something in this competition. It turns out the answer was immediately.
Hey, I'm Talathu Kwame, and this is Nigama, which means to sing. I am a singer and a songwriter. When I record, the goal is to minimize the muddy mid-range tones, the browns, and to bring out the bass and the high end, the blacks and the whites. I did that here while at the same time maintaining the striping patterns that my Blackfoot Indian ancestors wove into blankets long ago. White in that culture means the wisdom and clarity that come with living, and I have lived some. Black means strength and bravery, like the strength of a leather cording they used to tie their infants to their backs, like the bravery I tell myself I have enough of every time I step on stage and let the chords of the music carry my shaky emotions to a crowded room. Green means growth. And rock to me personally has always meant stability. Those two things oppose each other in my life, and I walk the line between them every day. I come from a close family. Family relationships to me are about what is solidly there and what you hope to have, what exists and what isn't yet. The spacing in the sleeves is about that, whereas the shape represents the teepee of my heritage. I am cohesive but not always consistent. I put 3 edgings, the folded hem, the curled edge, and the ribbing on the back to show that. This is Nigamo. It sings my history. It tells who I am, where I come from, and what I long to be more of.
I really loved this one. I think my favorite part was that sleeve detail. That I thought that it was kind of one of the most aesthetically pleasing details that we've seen. That was very symbolic. That's very hard to do. That I like the inclusion of the leather cording and the turquoise, and that was an element that she had considered as kind of an easy element to personalize.
Once I heard the explanation, I was very struck with how it did represent her life, because on first glance, it seemed a bit like a striped sweater, and it was a lovely piece, but I didn't see everything.
Actually, I did try this sweater on, and I think I'm probably going to wear it at TNNA. I really like the sweater.
This detail right here I haven't seen before in a sweater, and I love it. I think it's really attractive. It doesn't need to, you don't need to know that this is supposed to represent a teepee to really like it, but it's very attractive on a body.
I gave her, I think, pretty good marks for this. I was struck by it because she worked a lot of symbolism in without necessarily hitting you over the head with it, in the sense that the symbolism really wasn't obvious. But if you didn't know any of that, you could still look at this and say, that's a cool sweater. That's not a sweater I've seen 1,000 times before.
I'm Jeanette Cross, this is Fridley Run, and this is Barristan. You heard me singing Oh Shenandoah in the first video. The Shenandoah River's right behind me. When I try to think about who I am, I keep coming back to the happiest times of my childhood, which were hiking in the Shenandoah Valley with my family and extended family. One of our favorite hikes is the walk up to Fridley's Gap. Right alongside the trail is a stream called Fridley Run, and that's why this sweater is named Fridley Run. When I was working on this sweater, I fell in love with this cable, which I think looks like a deer trail crossing a mountain path. It was very important to me that the sweater be gradable and also have patterning that flows thoughtfully from one section to another. So I began with a circular yoke with 2x2 twists that gradually had more and more space between them until there was enough room for each of the deer trails motifs. The deer trails travel down the sweater to the hem, where they once again turn into 2x2 twists separated by 4x4 ribbing. The sleeves are worked the same way, with a deep ribbing that also encompasses the sleeve shaping. The button bands are picked up along the front edge and worked out in plain ribbing. The collar is picked up across the top of the button band and around the yoke. The 2x2 twists in the collar mimic the ribbing on the wrists and at the hem. There is a round of single crochet to smooth out all the transitions. The 6 outside buttons are fastened with crochet chains that are fed through the single crochet for stability. Buttons 2, 3, and 4 have counterparts on the inside to help keep everything tidy. Gray wet days like today are what Fridley Run was made for. My favorite days.
And I feel like this is sort of a cover, it's like a show-stopping kind of cover piece. Would you put this on a cover, like as a dramatic?
I could definitely do this on the cover.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it.
When I initially opened the sweater and looked at it, I thought that it was beautiful. Truthfully, of all of the pieces, it was the one that I most wanted to wear. So even though it didn't get the highest marks from me, it was one of the pieces that I liked the best.
I love the symbolism of the sweater. I kind of was like, okay, so there's the deer path. What else? But that's because okay, it has to have 12 different stories going on simultaneously. So then I actually appreciate that she kept it very simple. She picked one motif from a meaningful place and went with it. And in a way, I could see this becoming the Shenandoah version of the Central Park hoodie, but clearly a very, very skilled designer. I mean, there's no question there whatsoever. So I know we're going to be seeing a lot of her.
I really liked it. I was sort of looking at the pictures and trying to find things to sort of to critique, and it got to the point where I was looking at the cuff and saying, I don't know, maybe a little more of a finish at the cuff line. That's the level of pickiness I was getting to.
I love that she was thinking about the grading. I don't think it would be the easiest sweater to grade, even though she was thinking that initially. But compared to some of the other sweaters that we've seen, I do think that she was maybe approaching this much more as designing a pattern than just designing an amazing garment. So I definitely gave her marks for that.
I was completely humbled by all the entries. Really, really. I mean, the fact that there was a winner, is to be celebrated, and every single person who entered is to be celebrated, because what you did in the time that you did, and volunteering yourself for public study, it's humbling, and I hope that you got something out of it too, because it was very inspiring to be a part of this from the judging standpoint, and thank you for your work.
I said it before and I'll say it again. You all have a lot, not only of talent, but guts. You have more guts than I would. Submitting your work to be looked over and picked apart and commented on by a panel of judges and have that committed to video is incredibly brave. Happily, you're a very talented bunch of people. I did not see one thing here today that didn't make me want to see what else you can do. I found myself really having to search for comments other than I could not possibly have pulled that off in 3 weeks. So it would disarrange my earphones, but I would take my hat off to all of you. Well done. Well done. It's been a privilege to look at your work. I can't wait to see what's next.
I feel honored that I got to see your work. It was amazing. And quite frankly, I'm in awe that you were able to not only complete a design, but design a design in 21 days. I think everybody did really a phenomenal job.
I was kind of worried when I started looking at things that would I struggle to come up with, would the criticism be the easy part, and would I struggle to come up with positive comments? But it was absolutely the reverse, that it was easy to list the interesting and the positive aspects of your designs.
All right, we just had a little bit of an off-the-record discussion about which our favorite garments are. We looked at the scores, and then we also took into account our discussion and everyone's input. And a lot of us kind of wavered, but we came to a clear winner, and that is... Dun, dun, dun. I feel like I should sing it. Talitha.
Oh yeah.
Kwame. Talitha. She's our songstress, poet. Yeah, and this piece, we really loved it. It won us over, all of us.
Yeah, it really did.